Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic, and today I'm introducing what is called The Collective, in a series of Q&A videos in which different hosts of podcasts and YouTube channels come together to answer questions. So The Collective is a group of like-minded individuals that have brainstormed doing collaborations like this, and so now you're going to get a chance to meet some of them. So we're going to, each episode, ask a question, and then everyone is going to answer. And if you're interested in those people and you like their voice and personality, or their podcast sounds interesting, everything down in the description will point you to where to find them all around the net. So this first episode, I thought it'd be fun to look at the origin story of how these people became interested in comic books. So the question that we asked is, when did you fall in love with comic books? What was the first thing you read? What brought you into this? And so now we're going to cover their answers, and let's meet our collective.
Hey everyone, this is Phil from the Capes and Lunatics podcast, and what originally got me in the comic books? Well, I grew up in the 80s, and when I was 6 years old, I got into the Transformers cartoons, and I got all the toys, and that eventually led me to the Marvel Comics, the Transformers series from Marvel, and that led into me collecting Spider-Man and Hulk, and on the DC side, Superman, Batman, until it exploded, and I've read almost every character from both, and some from other companies, so I mean, it was a long journey, but short and sweet, that is all.
Hi, you're on Signal of Doom with Dave and Stu. Stu, what originally got you into comic books?
Unfortunately, and I hate giving you credit, but it was this guy. This guy lending me a copy of Deadpool in a trade paperback, one of these guys up here, about 15 years ago, I suppose.
Wowee.
That was my first delve into comic books.
You were just a youngster.
Yeah, young, impressionable, stupid kid that got connected to this guy. How about you?
For me, it was Punisher, and basically I was playing role-playing games, and I had Punisher comics, Judge Dredd comics through the role-playing games, and that's basically what introduced me. I went down there, and then I did a questionnaire, and the guy, basically it said that I was suited towards Punisher and Dark Knight Returns. And that was my entree, Labyrinth Comics in Hobart, Tasmania.
Shocking news.
Hi, this is Conor McKenna from Sons of the Dragon, the Immortal Iron Fist podcast. The best Iron Fist podcast around. What got me into comic books was definitely Spider-Man when I was growing up, specifically the Stan Lee, John Romita, Steve Ditko, John Romita Sr., that is. All those runs, I absolutely adore them. I love them. I still do. I think they're the perfect Spider-Man runs. They capture the character amazingly, which is why I love the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. They do a really good job of capturing that spirit. And as an awkward teenager growing up, yeah, that was definitely a gift. Those things got me through high school. So, yeah, that run will always be dear to me. Later on, I got into Superman through Grant Morrison stuff. Well, I was already into Superman, but I got more into Superman when I started boxing and doing martial arts. I got into Iron Fist and then Daredevil pretty heavily, and yeah, all sorts of other stuff like Hellboy. But yeah, definitely all started with Spider-Man. All the Stan Lee stuff, that's what got me into comics.
Hello, this is Ray from Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Questions, I guess. What first got me into comic books? I guess there were a few things that got me into it that kind of culminated in actually collecting comics. When I was really young, I used to always love drawing, and I love using my imagination, so a lot of that ended up drawing and creating a lot of books, creating a lot of characters. What informed that, I think, was a lot of Saturday morning cartoons. So I'd watch the likes of Astro Boy, Ulysses, G-Force, also Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, Mask, all these sorts of shows. and I'd really get into them. I remember also, Defenders of the Earth as well. So with the Phantom and with Mandrake the Magician, really enjoy those shows. So I'd watch them avidly every week, every weekend, and I think what that did was get me interested in creating my own comic book characters, and eventually getting exposed to stuff like Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk, which were very important, very popular icons of the day, particularly with the Incredible Hulk live-action TV series with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. So they were massive influences on me. Then as a young kid, popping over to the news agencies and just flicking through the comic books there, and then once I got pocket money, I'd buy my own, or I'd buy one or two, and it kind of grew from there. So I'd say a lot of popular culture and a lot of TV kind of got me into comic books.
So this is question: what originally got you into comic books? And then you could say, like, I am Shaun Mariner from...
I am the Shaun Mariner from the NamorPodcast.
Yes.
So what got me originally into comic books?
Correct.
Okay, so originally I got into comic books just from going to the local, like, little store, like Thrifties, and there were comic books on the shelf. I had an allowance, and what really piqued my interest back then was all of the X-Men stuff. I loved mutants. I was going through puberty myself, and I wanted to become a mutant.
This isn't the time to talk about this. We talk about it on each of our episodes. We get it. You went through puberty. You're such a bragger. Fine. Shaun's a man, everybody. Congratulations.
So, I guess I will ask you now.
No, keep going. You have to finish your story.
That's the end.
Oh.
I turned into a man.
From reading comic books, you turned into a man.
Yep.
That's the takeaway.
There you go. All right. Dr. Imperius Joe.
Yes, that is me. I'm Dr. Imperius Joe.
What got you originally into comic books?
I was going to Thrifties pretty much.
Oh, yes.
No, there
The old
was
Thrifties.
I think in supermarkets, I bought a few, and then we moved.
Oh,
and
bragger.
there was we had money to move.
Yeah.
And a car. But there was a comic book shop very intelligently placed a block away from my junior high school.
Oh, awesome.
And I rode my bike to junior high, and the comic book shop was on the way.
So you also went to school.
Yeah.
Oh, look at big
and I had a bicycle.
Mr. Education.
Yep. I graduated 7th grade. Yeah, so I would go to the shop all the time. And this shop was great because they had like promotions and stuff, because it was, I remember the first big thing was the death of Superman, and going there for that and getting it in the black bag and then wearing the armband to school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. That was super cool.
Yeah, I bet that all the babes and dudes
Oh,
were
because
hanging
they were
off
like,
of you.
oh, your Superman died? I was like, yeah, I just need a hug.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah, and then a hug turns into love.
Yep. And then into babies.
Yep.
Here we are today.
Yes.
You still haven't paid any freaking child support.
Sorry. Not sorry.
Hey everyone, this is Brian Bradley from the Mixed Marvel Arts Podcast, and I'm here to answer what originally got me into comics. As a kid, the youngest of 3 brothers, we owned a Marvel Superheroes Fantasy jigsaw puzzle. This puzzle right here. My favorite part of the puzzle was the legend on the back, because it helped me identify all the Marvel superhero characters I wasn't familiar with. At the time, I believe I really only knew Spider-Man and a few of the X-Men, but I also recognized Howard the Duck because of his heavily criticized film adaptation by Lucasfilms. We talked about this puzzle on the Mixed Marvel Arts podcast about 3 years ago. That was episode 47, Sending Puzzling Messages. That was fine, right? Okay. I did not really get into comic book collecting until later in my childhood. My parents would buy the random sets of Marvel comic books at BJ's Wholesale Club. You would get about 20 random books for $20, but unfortunately, since they were randomized, I never really had any consistent collecting going on. A few of the comics I do remember from my childhood as some of my first and most favorite moments in comics was the X-Men issue number 24, which had featured Gambit and Rogue embracing on the cover and made me a fan of their relationship for life. I also enjoyed X-Men number 25 right after that, where Magneto ripped the skeleton out of Wolverine, a highlight to my comic book reading to this day. I also remember reading Fantastic Four number 368, where Johnny went supernova against a bunch of X-Men doppelgangers. And I definitely enjoyed Fantastic Four number 374, where Thing clobbered Wolverine and sent him flying through several building walls after Wolverine had slashed open his face. Those are a few of the highlights of my comic book reading days.
Those were some really great answers. For me, I would say my first interaction was actually the cartoons. So the X-Men cartoons, Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman, kind of the heyday of animated series. When I realized that there was a whole world of mythology and stories that you could dive into, that's when I started getting into comics. And the first one that I bought regularly on a week-to-week basis, or maybe month-to-month back then, I don't remember the schedule, was Generation X. That it was young X-Men struggling with superhero things, but also struggling with being a teenager and coming to grips with all of these things happening at once. And Generation X brought me into the world of X-Men, into the world of Marvel, and that was probably the turning point for me. Now, I want you to answer. So you got to hear some different answers from all of these different podcasters and hosts, but now I want you to answer. So down in the comments, hop down there and tell me what got you into comic books. What was the first thing you read, the first movie you saw, the first cartoon, the first whatever? What got you into this world? Because our opinions are fine, but we really want to hear from you. So down in the comments, shout out what got you into this. And then we'll see you next week for another question and some more answers. Thanks for watching.